Look, I mean, I really meant to review these movies ages ago, like up of a month ago, really. And the most sad thing is that both of these movies are really good, and I would have definitely recommended them. And I actually watched both of these movies extraordinarily early. I actually even watched Knives Out in a pre-screening. That's how early I was to that movie. But, I never got around to it, and the real only reason I'm reviewing them now is because I wanted to add them to my catalog of movies I reviewed this year. Hey guys, my name is Frodo, and today we'll be doing a two-in-one. First up, there will be Ford vs. Ferrari, second, Knives Out, and a nice little double feature review. Watching Star Wars tomorrow, early morning, midnight premiere. My review will be like one of the first out, so check around for that. It'll be up at like 4 a.m. or so. Anyway, Ford vs. Ferrari. Ford vs. Ferrari is one of the many movies that came out this year and wasn't set in this year. But instead, this movie is set in the 60s and is once again better than most movies that came out this year that are not set in the past. We had The Irishman, which wasn't set in the 60s necessarily, but it was set in the 70s and 80s, and we had Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Both of those are probably one of my two of my favorite movies in this entire year. This one is no exception. I'm going to say it, this year was full of a lot of great movies, lots of big franchises, and lots of big directors. And this movie was really the little engine that could. I mean, well, not that little. I mean, the two leads of this movie are some of the best working actors to date. And in this movie, once again, they prove it. Both Matt Damon and Christian Bale are on their A game, and they're both excellent, alright? They're both superb. But the whole cast is great. Like, this is one other guy, this Ford guy that was constantly trying to micromanage what our two main characters were doing. And you really hated him for it, but like in a good way. And that's really what this movie is about. Micromanagement. No, but about a corporation of Ford kind of getting in the way of two dudes that just want to make a cool car. And it's really not about this big duel between Ford and Ferrari like the title might have you think. But instead it's more about the company of Ford ruining Matt Damon and Christian Bale's car thing. So this movie was a chill, fun ride, and when we get to the racing, it's epic. Don't get me wrong, this whole movie is cool with the 60s setting and all the 60s cars and the classic racing watches and all that little fun stuff. But when we get to the 24 hours of Le Mans, when we get to the bit where it turns to nighttime, the directing shows its work. There's a scene in the rain, in the night rain, and the red lights at the back of each car lighting up the track just looked epic, spectacular. And the car track looking this good wasn't the only enjoyable part about this movie. In fact, all of Ford vs. Ferrari was enjoyable. I definitely recommend watching it. If you haven't watched it yet, watch it. Buy it on Blu-ray or 4K because it deserves it. When the directing showcases, it's amazing. You gotta watch this movie. If I had to criticize it, it would be towards the end of the movie. There's a part of the story which the movie is based on that didn't really fit into the rest of the movie. But the movie kind of felt like they had to tell it. It wasn't an important part of their story, of Ken Miles and Carroll Shelby's story. But it didn't really feel input with the rest of the movie. And instead kind of just like tagged on at the end. So it was like you have the movie, and then here's the end of, and then here's the rest of Carroll Shelby and Ken Miles' story. It could have been one of those things where like, before the credits, the writing of what happened next. But then again, when that had concluded, it also gave us one of the best scenes. It gave us one of Matt Damon's best parts in the movie. So can I really criticize it that much? No. And the more hot take movie this time, Ford vs. Ferrari, I mean, everyone knew that was going to be good, is Knives Out, the new Ryan George movie. And depending on who you talk to, that's a good thing or a very bad thing. I mean, Ryan George wrote and directed Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which was a very cool-looking movie with the part where the ship goes through the other ships at hyperspeed. That was so cool. But from a writing standpoint, even if you ask me, a pretty big fail. He also directed Looper, which, both on the writing and directing standpoint, was great. But the real reason anyone should be excited for this movie is Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's cool. I mean, like, he's not known as one of the most prestigious actors of our time, but he's one of my favorite actors of our time. I really like Daniel Craig. And he has this weird Kentucky accent on throughout the entire movie, which I'd already adjusted to just because of the sheer amount of times I watched the trailer. I mean, I can see you not knowing it well if you haven't watched the trailer often and then having to get used to it, but I was already used to it from the beginning. I really think the accent helped him out of that James Bond role because the detective role could have been written as a 007 type. So the accent really helped Daniel Craig not be James Bond, and instead Kentucky Doughnut detective man. So while Craig is spectacular, the entire cast is amazing. Another highlight is the chick from Blade Runner 2049, who, I mean, I could say the name of, but I feel like it's more of an insult if I just ignore it. I would absolutely destroy her name. Anyway, here's a picture of her now, who also did a really amazing job in this movie. And this truly is, like the trailers say, a whodunit like no one's ever done it. From the odd style of choice of putting these very modern people, plus Kentucky-style Daniel Craig, in this board game Clue with this very 18th century home, that feels straight out of a Christian Aguilera book. And another odd thing in this whodunit is that it gives a big piece of the donut hole away right at the very beginning, fairly early in. And the rest of the movie, you as the audience has no idea what's going to happen next. And I really love it when a movie does that. And of course, none of that matters at all if the writing's no good. And sweet, sweet Ryan. Ryan George, my boy. I'm happy to report that this was not another Lost Jedi, but instead close to another Looper. And I would argue even better, because this movie was really funny. And an absolutely cleverly written movie, where no matter who the killer is, everyone is either a shark or Kentucky Daniel Craig. Guys, thank you so much for watching this double feature review. My next video will be up, as I said, early tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. You should all see it tomorrow when you all wake up. It should be up there. Spoiler review for Rise of Skywalker coming soon. If you just want to skip out on the movie, just want to go straight to the spoiler thing, I'm going to be doing like a deep cover story, like I did for it, Chapter 2, just a little bit more pictures and make it a little bit more poppy. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye-bye.